take out of your mind everything that you know about shooting and shooting sports with regards to firearms, and throw all those physics and all of that stuff that you've learned about that when you're trying to apply it to paintball. For instance, this is a bullet. Okay, it's an AK-47 round. Okay, you cannot take the principles and the physics and everything that you know about shooting an AK-47 and try to apply it towards shooting a paintball. Okay, this round could be anywhere between 20 to 50 years old. This paintball was probably made 6 months ago. Okay, 50 years from now, if I take a look at this bullet, it's going to look exactly the same. 50 years from now, this paintball, it's going to dissolve. Okay, so right off the bat, if you're trying to apply things that you know about firearms towards paintball, you're going to be lost. So throw all that knowledge away. Okay, paintballs. They're biodegradable, and they're sensitive to heat, and they're also sensitive to moisture. And the first thing we'll start off with is what most people do when they bore paintballs is they take paint which has been stored in their house for, let's say, a week, that's been stored in a controlled environment, say 75 degrees. They take that paint, they put it in their car, which is air conditioned, take it out of the field, they open up their bag, and they take the first paintball out of the bag, and they use this first paintball out of the bag as the basis for what they're going to choose their bore on. Let's say this bore is at a 687, okay? And they say, okay, for the rest of the day, all I got to do is use a 687 insert, and my gun's going to be shooting phenomenal. Then they realize that as the day goes on, their gun gets less and less accurate, their velocity starts becoming very inconsistent, and I'm going to explain to you why. Okay, first things first, paintballs, they're very sensitive to moisture and to heat. Here in Florida where I live, okay, it's like a public restroom here, okay? Everything is wet. It's 100% humidity here. And that's why I overbore all of my paintball guns. 689 is the standard barrel. That's supposed to be the industry standard for what paintballs are supposed to be. It's the industry standard for barrels. That doesn't work. At least it doesn't here in Florida. Okay, so when you take that first paintball out, let's talk about what's going to happen throughout the day. Okay, first things first, you're going to take your paintball, and most paintball players, because they don't have a caddy, they use their hand to scoop paintballs up and put it into their pods. So their hands are sweaty, their hands are moist, and they're taking all that and they're putting it in their pot. That's going to cause the paintball to start to expand. Then what they'll do is they'll take it and they'll put it in their pod, and to prevent their balls from shaking around, they're going to pack it as tight as they possibly can. The first thing that's going to do is that's going to take your paintball and it's going to compress it. Now, as you can see, this paintball is going to, if they pretend this is a paintball, it's going to get wider. Okay. Then what they do is they pour it into their gun, which in many cases, mini guns have a speed feed, and they're going to pour it into their gun, which is going to make the paintball start to expand even more because the humidity, the moisture is going to start getting to it, and also it's getting warmer and warmer out. So the paintballs are going to slowly start to expand again. Then it's the loader itself is going to put a lot of torque on the ball stack, trying to shove it into the paintball gun. Now what that's going to do is that's going to cause the paintballs to also start to expand and become oblong. Then it's going to finally go into the breech of the gun, and then the bolt is going to push it into the barrel, and then there's going to be an explosion of air behind it that's going to accelerate the paintball from about 0 to about 200 miles an hour in about that much distance. So the paintball's in the breech, the bolt hits it, starts pushing out of the barrel, and then there's an explosion of air, and as you can see, if you push this from behind, the ball also starts to expand. So boring doesn't really work, okay? You can't take the first ball out of the bag and use that as a basis throughout the rest of the day. Now, I'm going to tell you, every single gun that either I personally have made, like the rendition alias, has a 693 barrel on it. Everybody hails the Planet Eclipse as one of the best guns to come out in many years. Planet Eclipse has a 693 barrel on their stock guns, and everybody's, oh, the Eagle's the most accurate gun ever, oh, the Eagle's the best shot ever, oh, the E-Tech's one of the best guns ever. Okay, the Ego and the E-Tech has a 693 barrel. So if you're looking for a barrel selection, one of the best things I can suggest you do is to start off with either a 691, 692, 93, or 94 barrel. I'm going to give you my recommendations for the best barrels of that. 691, the Marq, the Bob Long Marq one-piece barrel, works phenomenal. Great barrel. 692, the Dye Ultralite. Dye Ultralite two-piece, awesome barrel for the price. 693, my all-time favorite barrel, without a doubt. CP one-piece, 693, 14-inch barrel. going up to a 694, which is what I recommend if you're down in the southern states, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida Panhandle, where it's extremely humid. 694 two-piece. The Boblong Marq two-piece barrel works awesome. Okay, so let's go and talk about the differences between one-piece barrels and two-piece barrels. Okay, one-piece barrels, the CP 14-inch single you can get away with that. That works great for 14-inch. If for whatever reason you like to use a 16-inch barrel, definitely go with a two-piece barrel. Okay, like the CP two-piece barrel or the Dye two-piece barrel. I have found that as you get towards the longer barrels, like this one here, this is CP 14-inch, but as you get towards a longer barrel, this piece here is generally drilled out to a .700. So what happens is as you get to a longer barrel, the ball can bounce around as it starts coming out. So if you're going to a 16-inch barrel, I recommend going two-piece barrel. If you want a 16-inch barrel on your gun, go two-piece. 14-inch, you can get away with the one-piece and it's going to work just fine. So that's how we're going to start. That's how we're going to kind of get into some of the boring. Now, some of the other things I'm going to tell you right now. Overboring, I love it. I break maybe one ball per 50 cases tops. Between having my loader set up properly, between inspecting my paint and overboring and having my gun set up properly, I break about one ball every 50 cases. That's a pretty significant. Most people haven't shot 50 cases yet. I shoot 50 cases in about 6 months. So I have maybe one broken ball every 6 months. Now, so overboring right off the bat, you're going to very rarely break paint. I always say never break paint again. Another thing that's important when you overbore is that if you get an oblong paintball, because when they package these, it's very easy for them to become oblong. You got to remember they're stacking paintballs when they ship them in skids. Probably what, 5.5 to 6 feet tall. That's hundreds of pounds pressing on that one box at the bottom. If you happen to get that box at the bottom, you're going to have a couple paintballs that are going to be oblong. So if you get an oblong paintball and you're overboard, at least the paintball can still roll out. And once again, most people that bore in the morning, by the afternoon, the heat and the humidity will cause paintballs to swell. In many cases, many of these paintballs do have a very small amount of air in them. And as it gets hotter and hotter out, and as these paintballs start to heat up, the paintballs are going to slowly start to swell. Another thing too, if you happen to get a barrel break, that little extra room on the outside will allow the next paintball to go through without coming apart. I found generally if I do happen to break a ball and I have overboard paintball, I can still continue to play. Another thing too I've seen too, by overboring, it does allow your gun to be a little bit more consistent. Okay, if you can imagine that this pod is the barrel and my fist happens to be the bolt. Okay, if you can consistently put paintballs into your barrel over and over and over again with the same force and with the same consistent force and pressure every single time, it makes your gun very, very consistent. If this is hard to do, if there's a paintball right here and the bolt goes to try to shove it into the barrel, obviously it's going to mechanically alter your dwell. So you maybe put one in there at, let's say it's going to shoot out at 265, the next one's going to be a little looser, it's going to come out at 315. So by overboring, it allows your bolt to consistently feed balls into your gun, and with a spool valve, it allows the spool valve to open up every single time, and with a poppet valve, it allows your bolt and your ram to hit your poppet consistently every single time. Another thing, another topic that we covered too, paintballs, they're not bullets, they're water balloons, okay? So by having an overbore barrel is going to allow a little bit of room for these water balloons, for all intents and purposes, to get out of the barrel without coming apart. Another thing we'll consider too, paintball's very expensive. Here's a way to save a lot of money. Overboring, you can get one barrel for between $40 to $60. Okay, a barrel kit can cost anywhere between $120 to $200. So by just going with an overbore barrel, you never have to worry about carrying extra parts to the field or buying an expensive barrel kit, because you only use one back and one front. So why do you need a $200 barrel kit? And you're going to have $160 worth of parts just sitting in your bag that you're not even using. So if you're worried about getting barrel kits, just get an overbore barrel, call it a day. And something else too, all the pros overbore. All of them overbore. Everybody thinks the pros, how are they shooting so accurate? How are they shooting so consistent? Well, they all overbore. Ask Crystal Soya, ask any of the guys on Dynasty. They're all using overbore barrels. So hopefully that answers many of the questions that you have about what is boring, what is overbore. Personally, I overbore. It works great. Email me if you have any questions. Thank you.